It isn't often a game gets released that has such synergy between its various parts and systems, and when combined, create something that will be remembered and enjoyed for years to come. Ghost of Tsushima delivers in so many areas that any slight stumble or issue gets quickly forgotten as you just lose yourself in samurai and Japanese culture, feasting on a world that is so well realized and visually portrayed, and in such splendid detail with design and aesthetics, that it gives it a look that will forever be synonymous with it. But Ghost of Tsushima is more than its vibrant and captivating world, more than its sumptuous environmental and lighting effects. It's the intriguing story of honor and survival of oneself and others. It's the divine and deep combat system that never grows tiresome and is always a joy to behold, to the small gameplay and design decisions that puts the whole of the package before any one thing in particular. In doing so, Ghost of Tsushima becomes a game of the highest quality and where the dedication of the developers can be seen in every area of the game, from the unfolding of the story and central themes, to the wonderful countryside you get to ride around in, to the splatter of blood as your weapon slices through yet another Mongol enemy. Ghost of Tsushima isn't just a game to play, it's a reason why I play games. The following is less of a review as a retelling of everything that makes up this very special game. So let's travel to Japan as we embark on a journey across this visually stunning world as we question our place in it and what we are prepared to give up as we become the ghost. And of course, if you like the video, please give it a share, a like or a comment, and let's get to it. So we begin the game by being introduced to Tsushima Island as it is being invaded by a Mongol fleet led by Khotun Khan. We play as Jin Sakai, who readies himself along with a large number of samurai, led by his uncle Lord Shimura, who ride into battle to meet the new threat head on. And to say it doesn't go well is a bit of an understatement, as many samurai are killed, with Jin being almost near death and Lord Shimura being captured. Jin is rescued by Yuna, who we come into contact with throughout the campaign, but this large loss of life just makes Jin see red, and when he finds some strength again, he heads straight for Castle Canada to face the Khan and rescue his uncle. He is defeated and now must improve his combat skills and start to liberate areas of Tsushima which are now under Mongol control. While playing the campaign, I found the story and its characters not to be one that was overly great, but as the hours went by, the story did grow on me more and more, as did the characters. It really is enjoyable, and Jin has enough personality and likability to carry the story, but the supporting cast is also very well done as well, especially the Khan and Lord Shimura, who always made my eyes glued to the screen due to their fantastic voice work and performances. The relationship between Jin and his uncle was also something I found intriguing, and how it was going to grow or change as the events of the invasion around Tsushima would influence it and the other characters, and how all would repel the Mongols. For a large open world game where story can sometimes be forgotten as players enjoy the freedom of these types of games, Ghost of Tsushima always made me care about it. Even if I was doing a side quest off the beaten path, it always felt like smaller parts of a greater whole, and it was handled with a sense of respect both for Japanese and samurai culture, but also with it being played out in a video game, which would keep a player's interest. And I'll talk more about the side quests later and other things you'll be doing, but let's talk about the visual presentation and the world itself. But what other way can I begin this section by saying that if Ghost of Tsushima was the last video game I ever laid eyes on, then I would be one happy man, as everything from its lived-in world with swaying trees and grass, fields that stretch off into the distance, are bathed in fog, or watching the beautiful lighting saturate the landscape, to the fantastic armor and weapons, through to the well-detailed character models and facial movement. If you do play with Japanese dialogue though, lip syncing will be out as it's animated for English voice work. but I lost count of the times where I just stopped to absorb the visual wizardry which was on display. Watching the wind move the grass and trees as it also made the soft cloth of clothing gently swaying the breeze, or how what seems like millions and millions of leaves are blowing at regular times throughout the campaign. It all looks splendid and very cinematic and will make you wish your life looked this damn good at all times. The lighting when outdoors from the sun can go from blinding to subtle, and it all looks excellent, but I don't think the indoor environments get the same treatment, with both the lighting and indoor building designs being more simple and less impressive. But even once you enter the new Legends mode, which has been added, the colour palette and lighting once again gives Ghost of Tsushima a look that is wholly its own. The animation of enemies, Jin and the side characters are all fairly fluid, which is even more important in a game such as this, as you flow from one action to the next to make the combat feel that much more visceral and engaging. Each of the armor or clothing pieces has an excellent amount of detail, whether it's what looks to be pristine armor, which hasn't seen much combat, down to the shabby clothes and damaged straw hat you can wear should you choose to. The foliage plus the trees and grass I mentioned earlier all look excellent, and everything comes together so damn well as you ride your horse across a large open field and make your way to one of the many settlements, as you watch the sun beam down, as you pass NPCs and see the structures, a settlement that looks believable and makes everything that much more convincing in selling the player this time period. The whole game just looks so incredible, and if you're one for taking photos of games, then be prepared to take a lot, as there are so many cool times to take them. From overlooking sweeping vistas to seeing the sun's rays try and peek through the dense trees, or seeing Jin in the middle of battle as he takes down an enemy. It all looks top notch, as is the texture quality, which is consistently good much of the game. And in other great news as well, I can't think of even a single time where the game dropped frames at all, regardless of where I was in the world or what was happening on screen. It seemed like a locked 30 frames per second on my PS4 Pro, and combat and movement always felt very responsive and crisp, and this just gets even better on the PS5 with it running at 60 frames a second. A highly detailed, beautiful world along with excellent, consistent performance is the holy grail of video game graphics. Whether in the thick of combat or riding at speed across the countryside, the game never skipped a beat. Then we get to the sound, and when it comes to voice work and acting, it's of a very high standard, which isn't too much of a surprise, as it mostly always is with Sony's first-party games. Jin always seems to ride this fine line of calmness, anger or frustration, which is believable firstly, but also in keeping with his samurai upbringing. Even when disagreeing with characters, you can see his control and respect at times when delivering his dialogue, even if his actions at many other times are brutal and violent. If players can't understand Jin's point of view or why he does what he does, then that's a problem for the story, but I just found myself to be more and more drawn to the character and what he was trying to achieve as the game went on, and much of this was conveyed to me by the delivery of the dialogue in the script itself. Other main characters are also voiced very well, which I touched on earlier, but even more side characters are given the same treatment. I wouldn't say I was attached to every one of them or that the voice work was exceptional at all times with everyone, but it was certainly on point when it needed to be, and it is of a very high quality overall. No small task when delivering such a long game and trying to keep that consistency and quality across the whole playtime, including both the main missions and the side quests, and especially if dialogue was still being recorded during the pandemic this year. Now, the best side quests are those that have multiple parts and not just simple fetch quests or something similar. I found some to be better and more in depth than others, but always seemed to enjoy it as it just added. I wouldn't say there were any that were particularly special or memorable, but they were certainly of a higher level than many other action adventure or RPG games. The ones I liked most were the ones taking me to different areas of the map or small settlements that I hadn't seen yet, or giving ones I had seen some more life associated with it. These were of more interest than visiting some random person in their house out in the woods, and which didn't really look any different on the outside or inside than many other places I'd already seen. But then again, it was a good feeling to help a character who had been victimized, usually by the Mongols, and my blade was the answer to right their wrong. If you're looking to complete them, you'll be spending many dozens of hours with Ghost of Tsushima between the side content and the main missions easily. The same goes for sound effects as well, and one of the most important for Ghost of Tsushima was making sure combat sounded as it should. Different weapons have their own unique sounds, whether they be a katana or spear, plus the different sounds depending on what they were hitting. You'll hear the clash of steel against each other, or the thud you'll hear when your sword hits an enemy shield. When killing an enemy as well, the sound design is excellent, where you hear the difference when you've hit enemy skin and the blood is flying, the sound of your arrows hitting different surfaces, or the projectiles you can quickly throw during combat, the sounds of footsteps over different surfaces and terrain. It's all very well done, and in the environmental sounds such as birds and wildlife, and the sound of wind and water all blend together to create a convincing world, and it's just another layer on top of the visuals that makes this such a memorable open world game. Music is perhaps even better, with the soundtrack doing nothing but enhancing the existing sounds and bringing the island of Tsushima and the struggle of its people to life. It perfectly captures the action and quieter moments, but has it fit this setting and samurai culture. Even listening to the soundtrack as I'm creating this video just brings back imagery from the game and just makes me want to play even more of it. And the one other area as to why I want to as well is the combat. It takes a lot of time, effort and skill on a developer's part to create a combat system that is both fun to play but has the added depth and complexity that can carry the system over such a long playtime. Sucker Punch has definitely done that, as the combat in Ghost of Tsushima is often nothing short of a graceful dance when taking on several enemies at once, as you switch between your foes and fighting stances in order to most effectively take them down. When on the easiest difficulty, players will be able to have a small amount of button mashing at times to get through an enemy or two, but when difficulty is increased, then it's extremely imperative that a player is comfortable with the controls and what each of the different stances are most effective with which enemy. So as you play through the game, these new stances will become available, and they really must be used if you have any chances of beating the game on higher difficulties. Some will be most effective against enemies with shields or those with spears, for example, and switching between them is a simple button press away as the action slows down so you can change stances without being killed. If you are to come across a group of enemies out in the wild, or if you approach a camp or enemy settlement, then the game will give you the option for a standoff. If timed right, you can take out the enemy with one hit, and this can be upgraded as well, and this helps thin the numbers before the battle. A large part of the combat system is what's known as resolve as well, which are the icons which sit above Jin's health bar. This can also be upgraded with more slots, and it can be refilled by defeating enemies, and this is what will heal you during combat as well. When you're low on health and don't have much resolve, then you need to make sure you're at your best, otherwise you're a dead man. Players have a number of different choices when it comes to skills as to which they want to unlock, and this can see how you play the game change slightly. You can unlock skills such as being able to do a running strike, which I found was very effective against enemy archers, running towards them whilst dodging to take them down easily, as leaving them as a part of the battle is not a good idea. Or you can also unlock chain assassinations, which will help taking down multiple enemies quickly. You can unlock a skill that will basically give you the choice to revive yourself if you die, or having smoke bombs to disorient enemies, giving you an advantage. And some of these skills can be further upgraded as well. These can be broken down into evasion or deflection, and this will come down to how you prefer to play, and is recommended to focus on one skill tree mostly to get the best out of it. For example, if you enjoy parrying enemy attacks, then you'll definitely want to unlock it, as it can be quite powerful, or you may prefer to have the ability to roll, which will get you out of some tight spots. These can be mixed and matched so long as you have the means to unlock them. You'll also be able to upgrade your items and equipment by collecting materials and supplies, or hunting animals, and you'll be able to increase the effectiveness of your chosen weapon as well, including bows. All of these skills, weapons, items and upgrades are there at your disposal should you want to acquire them, and some of course are more vital in your survival than others, but it will come down to your playstyle and what you're comfortable in using, as the AI can get quite tough at higher levels, and if you find yourself surrounded and your attacks are getting deflected, or you're just fighting on too many fronts, then you may need to change up your playstyle, maybe needing to be more aggressive or stealth-like. But whichever way you play, Ghost of Tsushima's combat is just fantastic in how fun it is to play and the depth that it has. And not only was it fun to play when it was released, it's even better now that the free update in Legends has been added to the game. This was surprising, and after some time with it, it's just flat out an awesome addition to the game and the reason I held off with this review. Think of Legends as the single player campaign crossed with a looter that may turn some people away, but remember, this is a free update, no microtransactions or anything like that, and it's actually done quite well. The update is basically spread across 3 sections in story, survival, and a raid mode, which I haven't had the chance to play through yet. So the story mode sees players teaming up with one other player as they go through 9 individual missions that are fully narrated and deliver self-contained stories that are more akin to the supernatural and Japanese folklore, which is a departure from the main campaign. Then we have the survival mode, which puts you in a team of 4 and you need to overcome waves of enemies. And the last mode is the raid, which also sees you in a team of 4 and which is split into 3 chapters. Story and survival modes each have bronze, silver and gold difficulty levels, and it's a good idea to go through each to earn the items you need in order to tackle harder missions or create certain builds. Now just this on its own I thought would be a fantastic free update to the base game, but then players also have different classes they can play and rank up as well. Choosing between the samurai, assassin, ronin and hunter, these are basically a split of abilities of what you could do with Jin in the single player game, and each represents a different way to play, but most of all, it gives even more variety and potential playtime for Ghost of Tsushima Legends. There are differences between the classes, with, for example, the hunter being more of a ranged character, whilst the ronin can act as a support class with his healing abilities. Players are free to also have multiple players of the same class within each game mode, so pick the one you like the most and run with it. Each class also comes with their own new, unique ultimate abilities like the aforementioned healing, or how the samurai can strike down multiple opponents very quickly. Playing each of the modes of course will reward you with gear and different types of armor which can affect your character attributes and gives you different perks on your way to maxing out your character's level. Even months after it's released, Ghost of Tsushima is perhaps the best game I've played this year and easily one of the best I've played in recent years. From its lengthy and fun single player campaign to its now multiplayer modes, there is just a lot of game here to get through. On top of that, it looks gorgeous with its own unique visuals, which is topped off in that your ears also get to revel in the fantastic musical score. When you add these things into an expansive open world with many places to discover as well as the excellent combat, then what you have is one special game. If you have the means to play it, then I highly suggest you check this game out, and maybe you'll be just as impressed with it as I was and still am.